tell you in advance. Okay. So we started part 2 yesterday, and Santiago, the shepherd boy, has a nice little side hustle, side job, gig, whatever you want to call it, working for the crystal merchant. And things are going really well. Their traffic has increased, lots of sales, and he's thinking, all right, if this continues, then I should be able to, have enough money in a year to get my sheep, and then we can make the trek from Tarifa all the way across the Sahara to the pyramids so he can figure out his personal legend and discover the treasure there. And so he proposed his plan. He said, all right, things are going well, but they could be going better. He said that to the crystal merchant, and he's like, all right, so here's what I would like to do. I'd like to have a display case so that people can see, kind of like, pre-window shopping thing, so they can get a little preview of what we have in our store and attract and draw more customers in. And the guy was like, I think we have a good thing going here. I don't really want to change anything. I like the status quo, but okay, I'll give it a whirl. And so he did. And again, their sales increased and their foot traffic increased. And still, Santiago was not satisfied. He was like, all right, this is good. I'm going to capitalize on this, and let's see if we can make even more money. He said, let's start selling tea in glasses. People that come by are often thirsty. Let's do this. And then the crystal merchant was kind of like, really? I've already given you one thing, but why do you keep wanting more? I'm satisfied with this life, and now I have no choice but to come to terms with what you're proposing. I was content with not knowing, but now I don't have a choice. And so he's actually very angry at Santiago. And he kind of compared it to him as a Muslim going to Mecca on a pilgrimage and saying, I don't want to do that because then I'll have nothing to look forward to. So he's saying, I don't want to sell tea in glasses. I don't even want to do the window display case because I'll have nothing to look forward to. And Santiago was like, wow, okay, so we're very, very different people. I'm choosing to pursue my dream and pretty intensely. He's, trying to make as much money as possible. So I wonder what will happen. I wonder if they'll part ways. I wonder if that bridge will be burned, so to speak, between them as an employer and employee. I don't know. So we're on 59 today, page 59. The men climbed the hill, and they were tired when they reached the top floor. But there they saw a crystal shop that offered refreshing mint tea. They went in to drink the tea, which was served in beautiful crystal glasses. My wife never thought of this, said one, and he bought some crystal. He was entertaining guests that night, and the guests would be impressed by the beauty of the glassware. The other man remarked that tea was always more delicious when it was served in crystal because the aroma was retained. The third said that it was the tradition in the Orient to use crystal glasses for tea because it had magical powers. Before long, the news spread, and great many people began to climb the hill to see the shop that was doing something new in the trade that was so old. Other shops were opened that served tea in crystal, but they weren't at the top of a hill, and they had little business. Eventually, the merchant had to hire 2 more employees. He began to import enormous quantities of tea, along with his crystal, and his shop was sought out by men and women with the thirst for things new. And in a way, the months passed. Page break. The boy awoke before dawn. It had been 11 months and 9 days since he had set foot on the African continent. He dressed in his Arabian clothing of white linen, bought especially for this day. He put his headcloth in place and secured it with a ring made of camel skin. Wearing his new sandals, he descended the stairs silently. The city was still sleeping. He prepared himself a sandwich and drank some hot tea from a crystal glass. Then he sat in the sun-filled doorway, smoking the hookah. He smoked in silence, thinking of nothing, and listening to the sound of the wind that brought the scent of the desert. When he had finished his smoke, he reached into one of his pockets and sat there for a few moments, regarding what he had withdrawn. It was a bundle of money, enough to buy himself 120 sheep, a return ticket, and a license to import products from Africa into his own country. He waited patiently for the merchant to awaken and open the shop. Then the two went off to have some more tea. I'm leaving today, said the boy. I have the money I need to buy my sheep, and you have the money you need to go to Mecca. The old man said nothing. Will you give me your blessing? Asked the boy. You have helped me. The man continued to prepare his tea, saying nothing. Then he turned to the boy. I am proud of you, he said. You brought a new feeling into my crystal shop. But you know what? You know that I'm not going to go to Mecca, just as you know that you're not going to buy your sheep." "Who told you that?" asked the boy, startled. "Muktub," said the old crystal merchant, and he gave the boy his blessing. Another page break. The boy went to his room and packed his belongings. They filled 3 sacks, and he was leaving, he saw, in the corner of his room, his old shepherd's pouch. It was bunched up, and he had hardly thought of it for a long time. As he took his jacket out of the pouch, thinking to give it to someone in the street, the 2 stones fell to the floor, Urim and Thummim. It made the boy think of the old king, and it startled him to realize how long it had been since he had thought of him. For nearly a year, he had been working incessantly, there we go, thinking only of putting aside enough money so that he could return to Spain with pride. "Never stop dreaming," the old king had said. "Follow the omens." The boy picked up Urim and Thummim and once again had the strange sensation that the old king was nearby. He had worked hard for a year, and the omens were that it was time to go. "I'm going to go back to doing just what I did before," the boy thought, "even though the sheep didn't teach me to speak Arabic." But the sheep had taught him something even more important, that there was a language in the world that everyone understood, a language the boy had used throughout the time that he was trying to improve things at the shop. It was the language of enthusiasm, of things accomplished with love and purpose, and as part of a search for something believed in and desired. Tangier was no longer a strange city, and he felt that just as he had conquered this place, he could conquer the world. "When you want something, all of the universe conspires to help you achieve it," the old king said. But the old king hadn't said anything about being robbed, or about endless deserts, or about people who know what their dreams are but don't want to realize them. The old king hadn't told him that the pyramids were just a pile of stones, or that anyone could build one in his backyard. And he had forgotten to mention that when you have enough money to buy a flock larger than one you had before, you should buy it. So he's saying, the king told him things things that he needed to know in that moment when he was with the king. But now things have changed, and he doesn't know how the king's sentiments match up to where he stands, currently, and the decisions that he has to make. The boy picked up a pouch and put it with his other things. He went down the stairs and found the merchant waiting on a foreign couple, while 2 other customers walked about the shop, drinking tea from crystal glasses. It was more activity than usual for this time of the morning. From where he stood, he saw for the first time that the old merchant's hair was very much like the hair of the old king. He remembered the smile of the candy seller on his first day in Tangier, when he had nothing to eat and nowhere to go. That smile had also been like the old king's smile. It's almost as if he had been here and left his mark, he thought, and yet none of these people have ever met the old king. On the other hand, he said that he always appeared to help those who are trying to realize their personal legend. He left without saying goodbye to the crystal merchant. He didn't want to cry with all the other people there. He was going to miss the place and all the good things he had learned. He was more confident in himself, though, and felt as though he could conquer the world. "But I'm going back to the fields that I know to take care of my flock again," he said to himself with certainty, but he was no longer happy with his decision. He had worked for an entire year to make a dream come true, and that dream, minute by minute, was becoming less important. Maybe because that wasn't really his dream. Who knows? Maybe it's better to be like the crystal merchant, never go to Mecca, and just go through life wanting to do so, he thought, again trying to convince himself. But as he held Urim and Thummim in his hand, those were the 2 stones, they had transmitted to him the strength and will of the old king. By coincidence, or maybe it was an omen, the boy thought. He came to the bar he had entered on the first day there. The thief wasn't there, and the owner brought him a cup of tea. "I can always go back to being a shepherd," the boy thought. "I learned how to care for sheep, and I haven't forgotten how that's done. But maybe I'll never have another chance to get to the pyramids in Egypt. The old man wore a breastplate of gold, and he knew about my past. He really was a king, a wise king." The hills of Andalusia were only 2 hours away, but there was an entire desert between him and the pyramids. Yet the boy felt that there was another way to regard the situation. He was actually 2 hours closer to his treasure. The fact that the 2 hours had stretched into an entire year didn't matter. "I know why I want to go back to my flock," he thought. "I understand sheep. They're no longer a problem, and they can be good friends. On the other hand, I don't know if the desert can be a friend, and it's in the desert that I have to search for my treasure. If I don't find it, I can always go home. I finally have enough money and all the time I need. Why not?" He suddenly felt tremendously happy. He could always go back to being a shepherd. He could always become a crystal salesman again. Maybe the world had other hidden treasures, but he had a dream, and he had met with the king. That doesn't just happen to anyone. He was planning as he left the bar. He had remembered that one of the crystal merchant's suppliers transported his crystal by means of caravans that crossed the desert. Ooh, there's a little foreshadowing to the caravan part. In the beginning, in the prologue, he picked up that Greek myth story about Narcissus in a caravan. Ah, foreshadowing. Ah! All right, sorry, I'll stop. Awkward. Okay, he held Urim and Thummim in his hand because of those two stones. He was once again on the way to his treasure. I am always nearby when someone wants to realize their personal legend, the old king had told him. What could it cost to go over to the supplier's warehouse and find out if the pyramids were really that far away? All right, time check, 1:15. Yeah. I was flipping through this book and I found a map I just want to show really quickly before I hit end on the recording. Okay, I'm going to do my best here to show it to you. I have to bend the book a bit. Okay. So hopefully that is as clear as it can be. This is Spain, and sorry, I don't have a lot of fingers here to work with. And then this is Africa. And so it just gives you a little bit of a geographical perspective of where he is traveling from and to, hopefully. Okay, I'm going to hop on with the Roadrunners. Guys, thanks for tuning in.